Whoa, this is the Illusion reporting from somewhere on spaceship Earth. I just finished this book, Short Nights of the Shadow Catcher by Timothy Egan. I almost started crying when I finished it. I've been reading this book to Owl before I put him to bed, while I put him to bed every night for the last about 2 months, maybe 3 months, I don't know. Usually get about 5 or 6 pages to him. So I've been reading it out loud to him over the last couple months. And there's the man right there, the shadow catcher himself. Why does this book almost bring me to tears? Edward Curtis was almost forgotten by time. Like, reading this book makes him alive, right? That's one of the most powerful things about books. So Edward Curtis was a man for a specific period of time in American history and North American history. So he captured images of the original people as their culture was being destroyed by Christian missionaries and the United States government. And the original people were being forced onto the reservations, and the reservations were shrinking, and their populations were being decimated by diseases. So Edward Curtis's mission at the end of the 1800s, beginning of the 1900s, was to capture the original people's culture as it stood before the white man came and began to eradicate it. And he was at a very unique time where he was able to meet Geronimo and Chief Joseph and go and take these pictures of their culture as it originally was, because his thing was that it was going to disappear. His great fear at the time was that the original people were going to become extinct. And so his mission in his life was to record their cultures. And at the same time, at the time, he was a famous photographer, so he would do portraits of the original people. So this book's got a lot of cool photographs in it, man. I thought that was a plus about this book, was the photographs at the end of each chapter were very cool. And it's a heavy duty story, man, because he was fully aware that there's Chief Joseph right there. Look at that. If this dude hadn't taken this picture, this man wouldn't be able to stare back at you and let you know how unfairly the Nez Perce had been treated. The Nez Perce who had helped Lewis and Clark. And so he was a man of a time, right? And his big concern was that he wanted to immortalize the original people. And so he had sound recordings were just made possible, so he'd go and record all their songs, and he was writing down all their alphabets. And he recorded basically all the tribal knowledge in the Southwest and the Pacific Northwest at the beginning of the 1900s. When this stuff was being outlawed and the original people were being forced to adopt the white ways because they were so much better. And this guy dies alone in some crappy apartment in Los Angeles in the 1952. I was just and this was a guy who spent most of his life outdoors in some of the most the places I love. Right? I identified with Edward Curtis. He loved the mountains. He loved the desert Southwest. He loved the culture of the original people. And yet he was fully aware of the vanishing, of the loss He was super aware of the loss and the absurd notion that these people didn't have spirituality, didn't have a connection to God, didn't have an understanding of God and the universe and the land. And he wanted to record that and capture that so that it could be brought to the future, and it was almost lost. So he made this 20-volume set of books called The North American Indian, and he, like I said, he died alone, penniless, in some crummy apartment in LA. Oh gosh, that's horrible. Oh, just that alone reading the end of the book just was like, oh, this poor guy, man. And so he died, basically. They didn't even have the obituary didn't even acknowledge his life's work. And it wasn't until people began to like find some of the books, which is interesting because I'm reading all these books from a similar period. The guy who has the storehouse of all of the Curtis books and photo negatives, they're called photo engraves, was Laureate, who was on the Lusitania, and I did a book review about the Lusitania. What's gnarly is Curtis's account of the Battle of Little Bighorn, Custer's last stand. Nathaniel Philbrick uses in his book about Custer's last stand, which I did a review on. So all these books seem to be interweaving that I've been reading together over the last couple years, because, as I'll keep saying, is that the key to our future lies somewhere at the turn of the century or the late 1800s, early 1900s. And that's why I was so supportive of what was going on up at Standing Rock against the pipeline. For me, it wasn't about the pipeline. It was about the original people coming together and having strength and finding their cultural connection to themselves, their cultural empowerment. Because I don't know if it's the legend of Kwasniewski, supposedly at the World War III, the last remaining place in North America is going to be down in the Four Corners region, where the original people are going to join together with the surviving American patriots and form a new nation. I don't know if that's the Kwasniewski or another legend, dude. But so there's this thing where I know that the most valuable thing as far as longevity for humanity lies somewhere with the original people, and yet I also know that the timeline is doomed in a weird way. And so I read this thing and I realize that we have a very limited time to capture the knowledge that the original people had, because it is part of God's story. It's like you read about it. What Edward Curtis's big thing was, the missionaries that were coming and they were destroying their culture, because Christianity at that time was all about our way or the highway, and it wasn't realizing that God is perfect and there's nothing that God would put down here that isn't knowledge. And yet Edward Curtis was very aware that he was recording his time for the future to affect a person like me. And so when I was reading the revival, it was talking about how the Hopi had used Edward Curtis's alphabets and recordings of words and songs to revitalize some of their cultural traditions, and that because now that our perception as a people has changed about the value of the original people, we've begun to realize that that they have value, and their culture wasn't barbaric and backwards, that it was actually super advanced. And that's what brings a tear to my eye, or it makes me want to cry, because I know we've lost something that I don't know if we can ever find again. We were so close. There was a moment where we could have done this whole thing right, man. like the human existence on spaceship Earth. We could have done it right, man. There were the teachers there. Like somehow it all got somehow like the lessons that Jesus had taught us got tweaked into this like manifest destiny and barbarism, and we were walking around with our ears closed and our eyes blind and just nothing but stuff coming out of our mouth. And here we are, man, in 2017, and we're on the precipice of just annihilation in a weird way. And I don't take it as like a negative. For me, reading is so very powerful. This was such a powerful book. Again, this is one of those books I kept bouncing into in the bookstore, and I just didn't know if I was that into it. And when I finally got it going, because I thought it was going to be sort of dry. This is a rip and read, by the way. This is whoever Timothy Egan, man, you wrote an awesome book. It touched me, man. It touched me. Edward Curtis. You were gone, but not forgotten. This dude, man. This dude recorded culture and history so that my son wouldn't be ignorant of the ways of a world that could work and function in a proper way. I know, I look all the land. I can see the loss in the land. I can see it, man. And so when I read this book and this guy's talking about how he was so concerned about this loss 100 years ago, this dude was walking around going, this is a bad idea what's going on right now. That the future's going to be bummed not to have this information. And here I am in the future, like reading this going, yeah, this dude's right, man. Like, what were people thinking, man? Like, what were people? And I look at now and I go, what are people thinking now, man? Like, why are we just repeating the same bad story over and over again, man? I don't know, man. It trips me out. And yet I'm super hopeful. I'm super hopeful that if I found value in what Edward Curtis did, if Timothy Egan took the time to write the book to inform my mind, to tell you that to read his book so that we can go check out Edward Curtis's photographs, so we can peer into this portrait of Chief Joseph right there. Man, if you can look into his eyes, he tells you 1,000 stories about what it is, man. About what it is. The pain, man. The pain because of the loss of beauty. You know, everybody wants to idealize the past. That's not the way to do it. It's not about whitewashing it. It's about understanding of something. That's why I read so much about the 1800s. And it's all there. Like, it's all right there. So, of all the books I would say that I've read that really have had a profound effect on me, it's this book right here. Very much so. Very much so. So, Short Nights with the Shadow Catcher by Timothy Egan. Highly recommending it. Anyway, this is The Illusion with another book review. Don't forget to subscribe and just go find out who Edward Curtis is, man. Don't miss out.